All right, all right, all right. Welcome everybody to another episode of This Week in the CBL. This is episode 9 of our show. Thank you guys for joining us. Chris, JC, thank you guys for hopping on and talking about the league and that kind of thing. How did your guys' teams fare last week? Chris, what was your team like? What FIU do?
So FIU had its highest scoring week since week one with the prolonged schedule that we had for that first period. But VCU, man, gave me one hell of a run through. I think 5.5 days. VCU had about 150-point lead. But some nice back-to-back days on Saturday and Sunday. I think north of 200 each day kind of put me over. But shout out to VCU. But yeah, went 2-0 to keep the streak alive.
All right. How about you, JC? How'd you do?
Not too bad. The 2 weeks before last week, I had been like out of this world. My team had been playing so good. I think I was number one overall by a significant margin 2 weeks ago, and then a week ago, I was like top 6, top 5, somewhere like that. I beat league average this week, and I won my matchup, so I was happy with that. It wasn't overwhelmingly like an incredible week, but I went 2-0 and can never complain about a 2-0.
Absolutely. I went 2-0 last week. I finally got off the schneid. My team had been playing pretty poor for a few weeks in a row. And my Cardinals played Miami, who was number 1 in the league last week. But I was able to knock them off and knock off the league average. I know you guys are going to take some snipes at the ACC, but I was happy to actually be scoring some points this past week again. And off to a decent start this week. So hopefully be able to maintain that and springboard that back into a little bit better spot because, early in the season, my team was leading the conference in points by a pretty good margin. And then we just hit a 3-week stretch where it was just like, I couldn't score at all. So we are where we are. I think a lot of people are sleeping in the ACC on Clemson, who has put up a lot of points in the last few weeks and now is by far the most points in the ACC. So definitely Clemson is one of those teams to look out for. I'll go ahead and tease our top 25 right now and go ahead and put it up here, our top 5. We've got our top 5 revealed now with Dallas Baptist, no surprise, at the number 1 spot. And then the top 4 teams did not move at all in this week's rankings with Dallas Baptist, Santa Clara, LSU, Rhode Island, and FIU moving up 1 spot to hop back into that top 5. Our panel changed a lot last week. We only had a handful. I didn't even vote because I don't know about you guys, but I was amongst the walking wounded last week, feeling really bad. So went to the doctor on Thursday and got some antibiotics and prednisone so I could breathe. Feeling a lot better now. I'm glad to be back. But any surprises in this top 5 for you guys?
No, not really. This looks pretty business as usual to me. Who was 5 last week and dropped out? Because I'm off the top of my head, I'm not remembering.
So part of the issue I think that we're having is I don't think the arrows pointing up and down are formulated to last week because we released the top 25 last week, kind of makeshift. Because I was
okay.
So that's probably based off of week 8. So,
okay.
But all the same, right? We didn't have a lot of people voting last week. I think we counted Rams votes and Ram didn't vote. So last week's rankings, I guess, kind of don't count. So this is more so based off of week 8. But still, I mean, it's the top 4 scoring teams in the league at the moment, or at least as of week 9. I'm not entirely sure what today and yesterday had in store for it, and then the remaining, other than DBU, undefeated team in Rhode Island, who doesn't get as much love because they don't score as many points as some other teams, but still undefeated. So can't really complain about that top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I'm looking at the standings right now. DBU obviously number 1 in points by a pretty significant chunk and undefeated. Baylor's number 2 in points, but they have 3 losses. That's my main assumption as to why they're probably not in the top 5 right now. But I mean, that's a team that's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if they're 6. LSU at 3 has the 3rd most points in the league. That makes sense. Santa Clara at 2 has the 4th most points in the league. Again, makes sense. And then Rhode Island's undefeated and Florida International is 5th most in points in the league. So there you go. It's pretty standard stuff, I would say, at this point.
Peter asked, "What's it like having a good team?" I think I'll have to defer to you guys on that because I've just got kind of a middle of the pack team. So, what's it like having a good team and feeling like you guys have a chance to win the whole thing?
I mean, I'll speak for we'll have two different spectrums. I'll speak for a team that's fully win now and definitely not next year. I mean, it's a good feeling, right? It's obviously a little bit concerning. Like I'm starting to get the jitters of 2026 and say, well, I'm having a lot of fun right now, and I'm sure I'm going to have fun next year. But getting a couple longer term contracts closer to the deadline might be something I'd be looking into. Especially considering the fact that I won't spoil all the Buttermaker content, but it was a little bit disheartening that, or I guess not disheartening. It was exciting that I beat DBU 2 out of the last 3 weeks, except the week that I played him in the Buttermaker, which kind of sucks, right? Got sandwiched in between those last 2 weeks, but it's good, right? Having a good team is always fun. But I've been getting a lot of DMs from teams in the middle, a little bit closer to the bottom, that are saying, we're having just as much, if not more fun, watching everything unfold. So, it's going to be super interesting. You mentioned in the Discord how excited you were to see the turnover and how that's going to affect the balance of power. I'm sure JC has a lot to say about the balance of power for 2026, given as his team is, poised to, compete now and probably very easily be a top 4 or 5 preseason team in 2026.
Yeah, I was looking at your roster, JC, and I got to say, like, I haven't dove in depth to all the teams, but just looking at your roster, I could very well see you making a case for being preseason number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's between me, Bryant, and a couple other teams for next year preseason number 1. But that was definitely my goal for this year, was just my goal coming out of the draft was to sell all my seniors immediately for as much value as I possibly could and just try to get as much as I could going for like next year after, but with MLB guys, so that I could, I was okay with taking a guy who might not be perceived as quite as good of a player on a longer contract. And it just turned out that the way the trades fell, I was like, all of a sudden my team's pretty good. And I feel like I'm pretty competitive, but I've got a lot of years on contracts, and every single hitter on my team besides Marcus Semien is either a sophomore or a freshman. And I just traded one of my junior pitchers in Rasmussen. I mean, I don't think we'll cover that trade tonight, but I made a trade earlier today.
No, I don't have that one in the queue here.
Yeah. And that was like a trade that probably I lost for this year, but for next year and the year after, I kind of like it. And it was just one of those, like, making moves to be competitive this year and one of the better teams and make my money back somewhere, maybe make some profit, and then really go for it next year is kind of my thought process.
Well, it looks like, as of right now, just kind of looking at your roster, I feel like that's been a good strategy, and I think it's going to pan out pretty well for you. I thought going into this year, and kind of getting off the normal routine here, but just kind of diving in and giving away kind of like what was my game plan going into this, was I went very bat heavy first, thinking that if I could just tread water with my bats, as those rebuilding teams fell, as those lower half teams started falling out of contention, trying to go pick off some pitching help that were seniors. But then the kind of the flaw in my strategy has been that, one, I thought that seniors should go for much less than some other people do. I think there's been a very wide discrepancy on what seniors should go for. And that has caused a lot of rifts in the Discord at times. My opinion is a rental that you're only going to have for a month or so should be a very inexpensive purchase, because what is the team hanging on to them for? But that has not exactly been the case in the trade market. So that's been one error for me. And then the other part of that is, based on the way we had our draft classes set up, those senior arms are not necessary. There's not necessarily a ton of great value out there. There is some, like one of the trades that we saw go down in the last week had a senior Max Fried, but I feel like there's not a lot of really top-notch senior starters available, because those that do have those type of guys are going to probably want to hang on to a lot of those guys as their redshirt tag too. So a couple of flaws in my thinking whenever I was going about my plan for the year and that. But we live and learn, and it's been fun. And hopefully everybody else is having fun with it too. Going through the chat comments. Let's see here. Kenny, I'm not sure what him and Peter are talking about, the Chiefs and everything else. Peter says, a holy non-answer, Chris. Jim says, good evening, all. Jim, we have not revealed the top 25 yet. We'll do that here in a little while. And then you can get to work on doing all those edits. So thank you for what you've been doing all year, Jim. I hope you know we appreciate that. And Jim, I also want to give you a shout out. I know you've been kind of going through things medically with your wife, not sure exactly what's been going on, but I hope she's doing well, and hopefully she's either gone home or is going home soon. So just wanted to let you know that we are thinking of you. Anyway, kind of moving right along, we mentioned, in that top 5, we had Dallas Baptist and Santa Clara, both in the 1 and 2 spots. And speaking of those two schools, they faced off last week in the Buttermaker Memorial Cup tournament in the final round. And Dallas Baptist took the win, scoring just a little over 900 points to Santa Clara's 780 something. So about 50-point win, a little over that, 160, something like that. I don't know the exact scores, but not a score that Dallas Baptist put up that's unbeatable. And I want to kind of get your guys' opinions on that, because we've seen Dallas Baptist kind of steamroll through the league. But to me, when he puts up, just over 900 points last week, to me, that actually that's a beatable score. So kind of what's your all's thoughts on that as we move closer to the postseason, and where one loss knocks you out? You guys have any thoughts on how the Buttermaker went, or what I was just talking about in, any given week, something that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head, right? I think for DBU, that number, at least as of right now, that number, when you're facing him, you gotta hope it doesn't hit 1,000, right? We've had a lot of teams hit 1,000 in a week here or there. I think JC hit 1,000, 2 straight weeks. A couple weeks ago, I hit my first 1,000 other than week 1 last week. But I think the only way to beat DBU is obviously, it's cliche, but for him to beat himself, right? It's got to be his starts don't show up, because he has such a high volume of pitching starts on any given week.
And 1s and 2s, not just like mid-rotation.
Yeah, they're all
guys.
eight. Like you look down the line, and he has 8-9 aces to your 1 or 2 when you're facing him every week. And at the end of the day, it's up to them, right? He's going to go as far as those aces get him. And again, I think 900 is a good mark to where you will see, 5, 6, 7 teams surpass that on a given week. But if he's putting up 11s and 1,200 points on a given matchup, it's kind of tight. It's kind of tight to do that, to expect to beat him. In regards to what you said about the Buttermaker, the rifle winner won it. He had the hardest road to it as well. I don't remember exactly who he started against, but I know he played Rhode Island at some point, who's still undefeated. He played myself in the semis. He got Santa Clara now. So he did get a lot of really good teams on his way there. So, kudos to Jeremy, right? He's been working hard since day 0 in this league. So no complaints there. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think definitely beatable scores these last couple of weeks, aside from the week he played me, which I think he put up like 1,300 points. But aside from that, right, again, if you gotta hope that stays in the triple digits.
Yeah, I'm just looking a few weeks ago against in the regular season game against Kansas State, he scored 880. I mean, that's a beatable score too. So it'll be interesting to see how it moves along. JC, any thoughts?
I mean, I pretty much echo what he said to a certain extent in that, like, yeah, it's he's been dominant, and I think I will say it's ironic, a little bit funny, and probably deserved that he won the Buttermaker Memorial Cup, considering that Buttermaker built his
knocked the Buttermaker out too.
Yes, Buttermaker built his God Squad and then was gone from the league. So exactly like Peter said in the comments, I just saw Peter's comment. It is fitting that DBU won the Buttermaker Memorial Cup. So congratulations to him for that. I hope he enjoys his BDS mug. Congratulations, DVU. And I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's the way fantasy football, baseball, all these things are, is playoffs. It's 1 week. Like, he's got the best team. I think there's pretty much no disagreement about that, but things change. People get hurt. People have bad weeks. You could always have a bad start by a superstar or 2 bad starts by superstars. It does happen. And I mean, again, like we're saying, he's put up these 800, 900 point weeks that are still great weeks, of course. But I mean, I don't think it's been perfect all season. All it takes is 1 week. And I think that's going to be, there's obviously no guarantee whatsoever that he just has this league locked up. I mean, there's a lot of teams like Rhode Island and like FIU and some of these other squads that are playing really well that have a chance to beat him 100%. I mean, I don't think other teams are out of it by any means.
Absolutely not, especially not in his conference, right? I won't dive too deep into that, but you have teams like Baylor and Illinois State who put up, I think, like 1350 and 1250 between the both of them just this last week, right? So, it's not even guaranteed DBU wins this conference. At the end of the day, it is a single elimination, if I'm not mistaken, Ash, in the conference.
It is,
tournament.
yeah.
So, anything can happen, and granted, there's no humanly way possible he's not going to be in the postseason at this point, right? With this trajectory, but even the conference tourney isn't guaranteed. So it's going to be fun these next month and a half before the conference tourneys start.
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned that he won the Buttermaker Memorial Cup. Jeremy, need to get in contact with you to get information from you to send you your prize. And I also need to get shopping on where we're going to get that made. So get that out to you as soon as possible. I got a couple other guys in the Discord that I owe some kind of like swag, for lack of a better word, that I need to get that all taken care of, wrapped up here in the next few days. Don't want to let it drag on too long because then it'll be forgotten about. But Jeremy, reach out, give me your contact information so I can get that to you. Speaking of the Buttermaker Memorial Cup, and those in the chat, please chime in as well. I wanted to kind of get some feedback on that. Do you guys like having that launch right from week 1? Or do you think we should push it more into the season a little bit so that it ends maybe a little bit later than it did this year? Maybe that would help to, because when you get to the middle of the season in any fantasy league, sometimes it kind of gets the lazy part of the year or the forgotten part of the year where people are, maybe their attention is getting diverted elsewhere or that kind of thing. Is that something you liked, seeing that tip off right from the beginning? Or would you rather see that pushed a little bit a little bit later into the season? Or are there any other tweaks that you guys would make to that tournament? It's just supposed to be something for fun added to the league to give the league a little bit more spice. So just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the Buttermaker itself and how we can make that better.
I am personally, I think it was cool this year. I think it was just neat to have that extra matchup to look forward to. And it also is something that obviously gives you something extra to look forward to. Maybe if you're getting DBU'd in a certain week and you're down by 200 points by Thursday, and it's like, oh, well, that's probably over. Like if you have a week like that, you still have things to look forward to, which I think is nice. That being said, I kind of am personally a fan of keeping it at least, maybe you start it a week or 2 later, but having it at least where it is ending before the trade deadline, I think is good, because I think that allows for, I don't know. For me personally, the middle of the season so far hasn't been super boring. And that's not to say that there's no chance it will be, but in a league like this, I just think there's always something happening. So I don't know. I kind of like the early in the year aspect of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I echo what JC said. I think the only thing that I would tweak is, again, the maybe a week or 2 later to start it at, just also to kind of give you a broader spectrum of those 128 team rankings, right? Because those seedings were based entirely off of week 1. I think with a biggest,
that's right.
Like
we started week 2, and then
maybe with this extra, maybe we don't need 3 weeks. Maybe we just need an extra week, right?
Maybe it was week 3 that we started, because we based the seeding off week 1. And so it took a few days so I think we actually started the first round was week 3.
Yeah, maybe that was the case. But I know that the seeding, or at least we mentioned the seeding, was going to be based off of your week 1 scores. Maybe we do it based off the first 2 weeks to kind of get a better grasp of who's, the true ones and and the middling teams. But other than that, man, I mean, the Buttermaker gave you, and I'm not saying it because I got far. It gives you something else to look forward to, right? You get to play teams that you normally wouldn't, right? I think, once the first couple weeks went by and people started to actually pay attention, right? Because I got DMs from people saying, I don't even know where the spreadsheet is. I don't know who I'm playing. Once the first like one or 2 weeks went by, people were really invested, and they wanted to see, the Cinderella story in Long Beach State make it to the final, and unfortunately, made it to the semis. But still, it's a good opportunity to play teams out of conference, which we don't really get a chance to do until the postseason. So, I wouldn't really change anything other than maybe extending the seeding week an extra week, so we can get a better grasp of who those teams are. But other than that, man, you knocked it out of the park.
Just from the comments here in the chat, Tyler mentioned a week or two after the start of the season, so there can be somewhat of a ranking for seeding. Yeah, that's kind of what we did. The first week is what the seeding was based off of, and then we got started in week 3 with the first round. But yeah, maybe pushing it back a little bit more might help as well. Kenny said bounced in round 1, didn't check the rest of the time. I do say that having to check your opponent on the spreadsheet and then figuring out the scores of the match. I mean, obviously, your own team score pretty well based on your regular matchup, but then having to go find the other team's score kind of made it clunky. Jim has mentioned that you can set it up as a I'm blanking on the word, but there is a way you can do it, set it up on Fantrax. So we will do that in the future, make it a lot easier to keep track of. Andrew says, I find the first week or so are always weird, so it's not a true representation of teams. Yeah, I mean, because you get one team has an unusually big week to start the year. Bryce would rather it wrap up the end of June. Then it could end shortly before the All-Star break, with the regular season ending a week later. Yeah, that's not a bad idea too. Chuck mentions after the first year, wouldn't it be good to use rankings from the previous year? I know that there's high turnover, but might work. Yeah, that might be something we could look at. I don't remember what the Constitution actually says we're supposed to do in future years. I know this year it was just kind of like, because it was brand new. It was just kind of like, well, this is how we're going to do it. But I don't know if we spelled out in the Constitution how it's supposed to be done in future years. I'll need to go back and look at that. But thank you guys for the feedback and appreciate that. And feel free to drop that in the Discord if you're watching this. I know some people watch it the next day or something like that. So feel free to drop a note in the Discord, letting us know your thoughts as well, or just in the comments below the video. And before we get too far in, I just want to ask everybody, there's, the like button below the video screen on the YouTube page. Please hit that like button. It'll help us out. Really appreciate you guys doing that. And make sure you're subbed to the channel if you're not already. I know most of you are probably subbed to the channel, but hitting that like button goes a long way for the channel as well. So appreciate that for you guys doing that. Moving right along, we kind of teased the top 25 earlier, and here was the top 5: Dallas Baptist, Santa Clara, LSU, Rhode Island, and Florida International rounded out the top 5. I won't waste any more time. I'll go ahead and bring up the new top 25. Let me get that shared to the screen here. Share screen. Here we go, boys. The new top 25. We've got Dallas Baptist number 1, Santa Clara, LSU, Rhode Island, Florida International, Baylor at number 6, Cal at number 7, Butler at number 8, Northern Colorado at number 9, and Florida Atlantic rounds out the top 10. Any thoughts on this top 25 that you're looking at right now? It looks like Illinois State had a big surge into the top 25, so glad to see that with the way they've been playing, putting up the 1,000-point week last week, I believe. So that's kind of the thing that jumped out at me at the start here. But any other thoughts that you guys have on the new top 25?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Off the top of my head, I will say I don't think the Illinois State jump is quite as dramatic as it looks. It says up 48. I don't know what the 48 is in reference to. That may be from others receiving votes or something along those lines. But again, I do think it's worth mentioning, kind of like what Chris said earlier. These are rankings in terms of the arrows anyway, and the up or down, I think from 2 weeks ago, because we didn't release an official top 25 last week for the CBL. So that is worth keeping in mind, I think. I would say, all things considered, it looks pretty business as usual to me. I mean, Illinois State's a team that obviously has been deserving, I think, all year of being a top 25 team and has had some really bad injury luck and some, not only injury luck, but also just matchup luck. They have currently the 8th most points in the league, and yet they're 12-6. So they have one of the worst records of any top 25 team, maybe the worst record of any top 25 team, but that's a team that's been extremely productive and just hasn't played enough defense, I guess. So maybe he should work on that. But, I mean, otherwise, it looks, I don't know. I think Georgia Southern actually is a little bit down from where they were last week in the unofficial rankings that we released, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. Maybe he lost last week. Oh, no, he did lose last week. That explains that. Because he's 21st, but he was actually 17th last week. So that's a drop of 4, even though it says +1. And then Tulane lost to league average as well. And hopefully we'll do that again this week because they're playing me and I don't want a competitive matchup.
Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, top 10, again, business as usual. I know, it's pretty much been the same top 10 for the past, 2-3 weeks, give or take Tennessee. Big Ten, they're coming back to try to get closer into that top 10. I see Utah making their debut. That stood out to me. It's a team that not a lot of people talk about. Clemson, the only remaining ACC representative at the moment. I'm sure UM's going to have some thoughts on that later on the Discord. Other than that, I mean, again, Illinois State, we mentioned the jump maybe isn't as drastic as 48 spots, but we have to remember, in the past month or so, they've been extremely active and their roster doesn't even look the same way it did when they fell out of the top 25. So though they've had a really tough schedule, the point production right now is also synonymous with his roster, which has just been an incredible turnaround there. I mean, I guess Texas as well, kind of that deserves a little bit of a shout out. They've come up. I don't think Texas has been in the top 25. They've gotten votes before. But yeah, I mean, again, a lot of the same names that you're seeing, aside from Utah. So, shout out to Utah for their first top 25.
Yeah, I had Utah in my top 25 2 weeks ago. So I definitely have been keeping an eye on what they're doing in the Pac-12. And then I thought it was ironic that UConn held on to that 25 spot after Ram kind of made some comments about not wanting to be ranked earlier today in the Discord. So very interesting to see them hanging on there at number 25. Mississippi State is another squad that we had highly ranked at one point earlier this year. And then they went on a string where they dropped several games over the course of a couple of weeks and fell completely out. And now they're right there on the verge, knocking on the door to get back in the top 25. I do think that Clemson, they're at number 23. I have them a little bit higher in the mid-teens. But I think that Clemson is a team that's better than their point performance has shown so far. They really got out of the gate slowly. But I think over the last, 4 or 5 weeks, Clemson has really come on because, just 4 or 5 weeks ago, if you ranked the conference by points, they were like 6th or 7th in the ACC in points at one point. And now they are leading the ACC in points for. So I think that's a team that's really coming on and will be a tough out for somebody come the postseason. So that's definitely a team to watch for. Long Beach State is another team that was, right around the top 10 early in the season. And then they kind of fell all the way out of the top 25. And I'm not even sure. There was a time there where I don't even think they were receiving votes.
Probably not.
What was that?
No, probably not. Unless you had them in the bottom of your top 25, probably not, because you're the most stoic when it comes to your team. So unless you had them in there, there was a stretch of almost a month where I don't think we saw Long Beach State's name.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they're kind of rising again. Illinois State's the same way, but Bryce has made a lot of trades that have really impacted his team in a positive way. So his team is really surging, and those are the types of teams that I'm really interested to see how they do come the conference tournament, and then if they get into the national tournament, could really surprise some folks from where they were just a few weeks ago. So that's another team that is really interesting to me. And then, of course, like Penn State, the Big Ten only has the two teams there in the top 25 right there together at 12 and 13. But I think both of those squads have a chance to do some damage.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. One last thing I do want to mention real quickly is just that the out of the top 25 teams, I just went and looked. The lowest ranked point scoring team for the season in the top 25 is, I believe, Utah at 32nd most points in the league. So it looks like it's very clear. I could be wrong, but it looks like it's very much shaping and shifting more towards rewarding those who are scoring the most points throughout the season, which I think is probably the right way to be doing it, in my opinion. I think record can be a little inconsequential. And I do want to say one thing, and I'm not trying to take shots in any way, but Kansas State, who was, I think, top 5 or top 7 or so in the nation at one point, 12-0, one of like the 4 remaining undefeated teams at the time, I think, or something along those lines, has now lost 6 matchups in a row, 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I was
lost to league
looking at that
average
this
and
afternoon.
their opponent. And that's that's brutal. You go from one of the hottest, best teams in the nation early in the year, and it has absolutely fallen apart for Kansas State here over the last couple of weeks. That's like with how loaded the Big 12 is, if that continues, that could go from a top 5-ish team to a not even playoff team potentially. I would say that has to be kind of concerning.
Oh, absolutely, it does. Yeah, I was looking at that as well earlier because whenever I was doing my top 25 this afternoon, I was kind of looking at Kansas State and I was like, man, it just seems like not too long ago we had this team like 3rd or 4th in the country or something, and now they're all the way out of the top 25. I think they've lost like 6 out of their last 7 games if you count league average.
I mean, it's brutal. Again, we've talked about how deep some of these conferences are, right? And the Big 12's got 4 teams, I think, if I'm not mistaken, here in the top 25. So, in the blink of an eye, in the span of less than a month, you can be out of it, right? That's how cutthroat this league can be. So definitely. Oh, I see the comment. 12 and 13 matchup this week. That's a good one. We have FAU. What's Tulane at right now?
22. 10 versus 22.
10 versus 22. And Tulane, he had a nice little stretch. I think he lost to the league average by like less than a point last week. It definitely doesn't help, especially in the American Conference, right? When we have teams that, again, I'll shout out VCU one more time. The 10th best team in the American Conference as of last week, and up 5.5 days into the week, they were beating FIU. So, if you're not careful and you go on a bit of a losing streak, it might be time to think, next year really quickly.
And then I know that UConn, we talked about them being ranked 25. They're playing Butler, I believe, this week. So that's another huge matchup in the Big East. And I'm trying to think of other big matchups that I've seen. I'm kind of blanking on that right now. I know Dallas Baptist and West Virginia will be a good matchup in the Big 12. West Virginia has not ever been kind of, in our top 25, but I'm pretty sure they've been a team that's been just outside of our top 25 they've been kind of on the peripheral in the Big 12, in that like 4 or 5 team in their standings, that kind of thing. Yeah, they're 4th in the Big 12 right now at 14-4. So that's a pretty big matchup for the Big 12 if they were able to knock off Dallas Baptist this week.
I do have one other thing I will add on the heels of Chris praising the American, as we are both obviously members of the American Conference. 2 of the 3 on this panel are in the same conference. That we're a little biased potentially, but I do think it is worth mentioning that the American Conference has 11 of their 16 teams above league average for the season. In the top 60 teams in the country, 11 of the 60 are from the American Conference. And I mean, there are a couple conferences, because the Big 12 as well is absolutely loaded with several of those teams as well. There are a few conferences out there that are just insanely tight. And I have to say, I'm feeling a little bit unlucky right now, in all honesty, to be in the American Conference, because I think this might be the most loaded conference in the country between obviously me and Chris's team, but then Georgia Southern is a powerhouse. Columbia's been really good. Tulane's been really good. VCU beat me, nearly beat Chris. Marshall's had some good runs. I think Marshall was as high as number 15 in the nation at one point.
Marshall beat me to get up to 50. That was my one loss this first week.
East Carolina's 14-4 and a good team, well above league average by points. So is Delaware. I think Delaware may have been ranked at one point. If not, they're not far from it at almost 15,000 total points. Like, this is just a gauntlet of a conference right now, in all honesty.
Well, and 10 of the top 25 are from either the American or the Big East. So those are the kind of the two conferences, with the Big 12 not too far behind. I think that, in my opinion, are the two best. But speaking of that, one of our longtime viewers here and league mate, the owner of Baylor, created like a little formula on his spreadsheet and put together basically a simulation of if all teams played every other team, what would happen based on what teams have done to date. And you guys correct me if I'm not explaining that well. He talked about it in the top 25 poll channel. Well, it was in that channel, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, it was the top 25 channel. He did so last week as well. So yeah, basically what you're going to see is and I'm sure he can share, or we can share it later. We can share team by team what your record would be, but you're seeing here on the screen if every team in your conference played all 127 teams that same week based on your scores, that's what the records would be. And again, the 54% win percentage and 53% win percentage for the American and the Big East respectively is it kind of echoes what we've been talking about those two conferences being extremely deep. Sorry, Ash, I see your conference all the way at the bottom with a measly 43%, but I mean, I just wanted to mention that since you're the only ACC representative here, but I mean, I don't know what goes into his formula, right? He's obviously much better than us at Excel and spreadsheets, but I mean, this isn't an opinion-based statistic, right? This is if FIU played all 127 teams, this is what their record would be, and it's a good way to measure kind of like a power ranking for conferences per se.
Yeah,
it's kind
absolutely.
My bad, Ash.
No,
it's kind of amazing to see that the American is at 54%, despite having Memphis, who is the worst scoring team in the nation. We love you, Clay. If Clay wasn't in the American, though, I think we would be looking at over 55%. And
so I know how many wins
pretty wild.
Clay would have. Clay would have 9 wins if he played every single team, every single. So just one.
That's spectacular.
The next team up has 50-something wins. So that's the discrepancy there.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that the WAC is sitting there right exactly at 500 with 9,135 wins and 9,153 losses.
That's pretty insane, in all honesty.
Clay is good for the league average. Absolutely. And then he did do this for individual teams. However, I don't have it on a easy to read version, but I will bring it up on the screen. He sent it to us in Discord. So let me go ahead and share that screen. Sorry.
He should send these links if these sheets in like the general server or something, or maybe they should be posted in the bonus content potentially or something along those lines. I feel like this would be interesting for people to look at.
Yeah, so here it is. How he sent it to us in the Discord. This is the team by team breakdown. So obviously, you have Dallas Baptist number 1, which I don't think is going to shock anybody. But then you scroll all the way down, and I don't think we'll be surprised again as we have Memphis at the bottom. But you can kind of scroll through here, and I will copy and paste this in the Discord to the main channel so everybody can see it. But I really appreciate Mike, Baylor owner, for putting this together and running the formula to see where the teams would shake out. Like my Louisville Cardinals, he said would be 724 and 419, pretty far down the list. So that kind of sucks, but I think it's
far, Ash. That was a little bit top, north of top half. You're fine.
Yeah, maybe right around 40 or something is what I'm guessing. I'd have to actually see this in a numerical list to know for sure, but It's got to be much more fun when you're up here at the top, like your Florida International is, and then you got Florida Atlantic right here, not too far behind. So, you guys got something going for you.
It's been a fun season so far, for sure. I think this league is just. That's the thing is that I've noticed though is you don't have to have a good team to be enjoying this league.
No,
there's a lot
exactly, and that was the whole point of all the stuff that we added to it. So,
there's definitely a lot of community to it as well. I feel like already developing in the Discord. So that's been a lot of fun.
And then speaking of kind of like the teams with the easiest and hardest roads to hoe in the league, based on that formula that Mike ran, and basically these were the top 10 luckiest teams, and that is Miami, Army, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Rhode Island, Clemson, East Tennessee State, East Carolina, Utah, and San Diego State. East Carolina was a team I considered putting in my top 25 this week, by the way. But any of those names kind of surprise you, or any thoughts on this list of the luckiest teams based on the formula?
Well, the ACC teams don't surprise me, and it's not me taking shots at them. That's just been the norm throughout the. Miami was a one-loss team for a few weeks, and you're starting to see a little bit of the reason why. Army, the same thing. Army and Miami were going hand in hand. I think at one point we're tied for the lead in that conference. I think to me the most surprising, even though we've mentioned this on weeks prior, I think Rhode Island's probably the most surprising, to be on it, because sure they are 18-0, but it's not like they're not scoring points. They're not maybe top 10 in scoring if I'm not mistaken. But
I'm checking right now.
Yeah, another. While you check, another team that was also in our top 25 that I think fell out is East Tennessee State, right? So you're starting to see what the voters are weighing their rankings a little bit on. Obviously, wins matter, right? We mentioned this to JC a couple weeks ago when he fell out of the top 10, even though he was, I think, at the time like 5th in scoring. The 3 losses carry weight. So obviously, when you have ACC teams that don't lose, regardless of who their opponent, because you can't really, it's not your fault that you're playing. The Memphises of the world every other week. But at the end of the day, this is about wins and losses. And, Rhode Island's 18-0. So you see it there. Clemson, another ACC team who's in the top 25. They continue to win. So can't complain there.
Wins are
Chuck
wins.
Says, Florida teams rule. And then Chuck also asked, do you use any of these formulas to determine the top 25, or is it subjective? Most of us, it's very subjective. I don't use any formula for mine. I know that the person who created this formula and gave us this data, he uses his formula in his rankings. So Baylor does do that.
Exclusively what this ranking is. So I think he bases it off every week off of that win-loss record based on playing all 127 teams, at least as of what he's mentioned in the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. And then conversely, we had the 10 luckiest teams in the nation, but then we also have the 10 unluckiest teams in the nation right here. And that is, started off with Gonzaga, Florida State, UCSB, Hawaii, South Alabama. Sorry, Tyler. BYU, Lafayette, Florida, South Carolina, and Syracuse, all the unluckiest teams. So basically, having to play a very difficult schedule for these teams and that kind of thing. I don't think it's really surprising that most of these teams are, well below 500. Anything stand out to you out of this group?
I got to feel a little bit bad for Tyler's South Alabama Jaguars, because he is, I looked at it just a second ago, he is smack dab in the middle, 64th in the nation in scoring, and yet he is 6-12 overall on the season. That is rough to be 50-50 and yet have a winning percentage of about 33%. So that is unfortunate for him, but his team looks pretty good, I got to say. So that's the type of one where it's like, maybe that's a second half. I mean, we're how many weeks into this now? 9. We have 6 more weeks in the regular season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
if he goes on a run, there's teams like that could see this and be a little bit encouraged, I would say, by their placement on this list. If it's team, some of these teams are definitely towards the very bottom of the league, but some of these teams are not so much that. So it can be a little bit encouraging, I think, if your name's on this list and you feel like you're in a position to at least hang around.
Yeah, I mean, that's 12 wins you could still have. So
right. So we had a lot of season left, that's for sure. And again, conference tournaments are going to determine a lot of stuff. So
Absolutely. Chris, did you have any comments on this list?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of these names you don't really see us mention a lot on the podcast, right? And it's been because of the luck of the draw, right? It's not that I think that South Alabama, again, we already mentioned it. They're a much better team than their record dictates, and I think that's something that when you're looking, and we've talked about this before as well. When you're looking at your conference standings, remember that the top 8 go to the tournament, and that's all you need, right? All you need to do is to get in. So, even at 6-12 at the moment, still 12 weeks left. You go on a run. I'm not entirely sure how deep South Alabama's conference is, for example, just because we're talking about them, but they might still be in it, and then that just becomes one of those teams that ruins those runs for the quote unquote top teams. Because at the end of the day, it's single elimination, and fantasy is more I'd rather be lucky than good. So,
I have a question: is conference tournament based? I should probably know this, seeing as I'm on the podcast, but I don't. So, is conference tournament based on your division record, like your record specifically against your division, or is it based on your nationwide record, including your league average?
Including the league average, because technically you really don't play the other teams. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then that would put South Alabama, for example, 5 games out with 12 games total to play, including league average, which is not a insurmountable amount. I mean, he has nearly exactly the same amount of points. He's like less than 100 behind the team that's in 8th place in the Big 12. Unfortunately for him, it's the Big 12. And so you also still have DBU, TCU, Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas State, Illinois State, Oklahoma State as well, all of whom are, actually, he's outscored Oklahoma State by almost 1,000 points. Oklahoma State, there's one of the luckiest teams in the nation right there.
And Tyler mentions that his schedule does ease up a bit. The first 4 or 5 weeks were brutal. And so big swings can still happen within your conference standings between now and the end of the regular season. Just wanted to throw out there that the trade deadline is going to be here before we know it. The trade deadline is June 29th. So as of right now, we are, under 4 weeks away from the trade deadline. So if you're hanging on to seniors and you're one of those teams that's well out of the conference tournament picture. Now, if you're in 9th or 10th place, I think you should be trading 4 players to try to get into the conference tournament, which we need to obviously put more emphasis on that next year. And we've talked about ways, but I do think that, if you're holding on to seniors and you're well out of your conference tournament, they lose value every day that you hold them from here on out, because 26 days will go by rather quickly getting to that trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how much of a tank in value a senior Isak Paredes has had, right? I don't want to spoil anything.
No way
about it, but I mean, a freshman Quinn Priester is all you're going to get for Paredes at this point. So start selling them now.
And if you're selling senior pitchers, sell them to me, because I will buy them.
I don't know what to do, man. I'm kind of in that middle ground right now. So I got to see what happens.
I think you could win it all. So I would go for it if I was you.
Well, yeah, because I beat Miami last
totally
week when
win
you're
your
number 1 in the
100%.
conference. So
absolutely.
But speaking of trades, one of the highlights of the show is always when we bring up the trades that have happened in recent days and break those down and talk to them a little bit. And we had one that went down, I think it was yesterday, that I wanted to start us off with tonight. And that would be the Indiana State Sycamores receiving a junior, Logan Webb, in return to Arkansas receiving a senior, Matt Chapman, and a junior, Tommy Edmond. Chris, go ahead and start us off. What were your thoughts on this deal?
As someone who just traded Logan Webb, mine was a junior as well. I fail to understand, right? And shout out to Bob. I know Bob probably isn't watching, and he's also not very active in the CBL chat. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't post that you're selling a junior Webb, because I'm sure you'd be flooded with offers that were probably more conducive to what Arkansas is trying to do. I mean, again, I'm not entirely sure what his record is, but I can't remember seeing Arkansas close to the top in scoring or whatnot and win. So I don't necessarily know what the vision is with a senior Matt Chapman and Tommy Edmonds. Tommy Edmonds having a great year. Don't get me wrong, but Logan Webb, me and Ash have harped about how much we love Logan Webb, and at this point now for the third time, how much I wish I still had him. I gotta give this to the Sycamores, right? Like Indiana State, right? I think they crushed it. Kudos to them, right? Bob's not an easy guy to get in contact with when it comes to the CBL trade, so kudos to him. But it's just a bit of a head scratcher when your team's not super competitive, taking on senior contracts, unless he's gonna redshirt Matt Chapman, which again at this point
I don't think so. Like I'm looking at his roster right now, and there's several guys I think I would redshirt ahead of Matt Chapman. So maybe he's gonna flip him. Who knows?
I have to say, I am fully in agreement with Chris. I have the numbers. I got all my stuff pulled up right here. He's 6-12 on the year. And he's also, he's in the SEC, which is one of the more competitive conferences. That's a top 4, I would say, conference at a minimum in the nation. And he also has a ton of hitting, like too much hitting. He has some guys that I wouldn't even own. In Matt Mervis, Kevin Biggio. He's the only owner of Kevin Biggio. Santiago Espinal and Edward Julian, who's in the minors right now. Kevin Biggio, Matt Mervis, and Edward Julian are all minors without minor league eligibility, or like to be placed in the minors, I should say, in the CBL. So to me, it's a little bit of a confusing roster right now. And like Ash said, you got senior Stephen Kwan, senior Joe Ryan. Why are you acquiring a senior Matt Chapman? Would be my question. And for me, it's not that Matt Chapman and Tommy Edman are bad players. Both of them are useful, good players. They're 5-point per game guys, but stud pitching is valuable. Logan Webb is a 37-point per game guy this year. That is one of the 10 to 15 best pitchers in the sport as of right now. That's a guy who I think if you throw him on the trade block and you go, I'm looking for a freshman quality MLB player, you can get a good freshman MLB player for junior Logan Webb. You might even be able to get more than that potentially. That's a guy people are going to be interested in. You can get yourself a valuable piece for the future if you're a 6-12 team that hasn't been amazing this year. And I feel like a Logan Webb's the type of piece, especially with how much hitting he has. He doesn't have spare pitching at all, really. I'd be like, can I get a freshman pitcher? Can I get 2 sophomore pitchers? Like, can I find a way to get a quality prospect plus a quality younger contract? Like, I feel like that's a situation where you can get more for what your team needs than a senior that you won't have next year and isn't helping you win this year. And junior Tommy Edman, who's a good 5-point per game player, but are you winning this year or next year? I don't really know. It just doesn't seem like there's a clear direction as of right now with this trade, basically.
And to your point, they have no bench pitchers at all. Not one.
Not a single one.
And he's 6-12 on the season and firmly in 13th place in the conference with really no hopes of making the conference tournament.
Right.
So maybe he has a plan to start moving some of these seniors, but I don't think Matt Chapman is a redshirt candidate with those other guys that you mentioned.
Right.
You kind of hit the nail on the head, JC. So I am not feeling this trade for Bob at all. Love you to death, Bob, but I'm not sure what the thought process was here. Great move for Indiana State.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we haven't talked about Indiana State at all in this deal. This is a great deal for a top 12 team, I think, in the nation right now. Like, that is a high-level team that is looking to compete this year and doing a good job of putting themselves in position to be that level of competitive team. And it's a team that had maybe a little bit too much hitting, had 5 bench hitters before this trade, makes this move, now only has 3 bench hitters, adds another really quality stud starting pitcher in Logan Webb. And just, I feel like it's continuing to shape a very competitive roster into an even more competitive roster. Because again, at the end of the day, 5 bench hitters, 3 bench hitters, is it really that big of a difference if most of your guys are everyday hitters? And most of his guys that I'm looking at right now are kind of everyday players. So I like it. Indiana State, double thumbs up, thumbs down, because I'm trying to compete against you and good teams, but like, that's a good trade for you. Like, I give you 2 thumbs up, 100%.
Absolutely. And moving right along here, we'll shift to another trade that I'm not sure about, to be honest. in this one, Duke is receiving a senior Cal Raleigh, a junior Walker Bueller, a sophomore Brady Singer, and a sophomore Michael Bush. In return, the Portland Pilots are receiving a junior or sophomore Junior Caminero, a freshman Walker Jenkins, and a freshman J.R. Ritchie. And I realized I forgot to do the prospect rankings, so I apologize to everybody for not including the prospect rankings. But still go check out the Upside Prospect. He does great work. In fact, he just released his newest top 350 prospects on his service, on his Patreon. So check out the Upside Prospect. Lucas does a great job. JC, what are your thoughts about this trade?
Initial thoughts are senior Cal Raleigh is probably the best catcher in baseball right now because of how much pop he's hit for this year. He's been truly extremely good. And that's a guy who's going to be, I mean, Duke's in a weird spot because Duke's a team that basically sold like a month ago-ish or so, and yet did a good job of making the types of deals that I would have been trying to do with these older contracts, where packaging a couple of older contracts together, but getting young, valuable pieces back. They traded for Gunnar Henderson. They traded for Junior Caminero on a sophomore contract, stuff like that. We're trading these quality juniors. I mean, traded a junior Pete Alonso when he was averaging like 9+ points a game. A couple other pieces. I don't remember the exact specifics, but has done a really good job of building a roster that has managed to kind of lurk and hang around. Is now 7-11. I think he was 2-11 through his first 6 weeks, and has won 6 games in a row over the last 3 weeks, beating league average and his opponents. And all of a sudden finds himself in a pretty interesting spot with a team that's kind of pretty young now. It's not an amazing roster, but it's a decently competitive roster that he's continued to work on. He's starting to buy a little bit. I'm not even sure he had a senior on the roster before Cal Raleigh. So Cal Raleigh would be, I guess he has. Yeah, Cal Raleigh would literally be his only senior. So that's a redshirt catcher as well for him. As of right now, that's probably his redshirt. Like, he is getting a lot of quality MLB assets. I'm not calling Walker Bueller, Brady Singer, or Michael Bush superstars, but all of them are MLB contributors. Michael Bush has been awesome this year, so he's a very valuable piece, especially if he hits like he has this year. Whereas Brady Singer and Walker Bueller are just consistent. Those guys are going to be around 20 points per game. They may not be super duper stars, but they're valuable, consistent players. And he gave up Junior and an injured Walker Jenkins. And I don't know a ton about J.R. Ritchie. I'll be totally honest. That's not a guy that I really know a lot about. But I don't think that he's in a position where he's going to be a super duper impactful, high level MLB arm, considering he's 22 and high in AA. Like, he's not a bad prospect, but he's probably not a front end starter. And so, I mean, sophomore Michael Bush has been better than junior this year. I'm not saying he has more value than junior, but I think I'm yapping a little, so I apologize for going on this long. But this is a bit of a confusing trade for me, and for me, it's an easy win for Duke. I mean, Walker Jenkins might be one of the 5 best prospects in baseball if he could stay on the field, but he never plays. So I don't know.
Chris, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is a win for Duke. I think this is a clear-cut example about how absolutely insane this league is, that you can sell for the future and within, a couple weeks time say, you know what, maybe, right?
I'm buying back in.
So you brought him right back in. Duke was entirely set on the future and, put up some really strong weeks, right, where they would have outscored most teams in the last couple weeks. They got good value. I'm not a big Walker Bueller guy, right? I think he's okay. I think the injuries are a bit of a, but again, you mentioned it and you hit the head. You hit it around the head. Junior Caminero's, to me, the most important piece of Portland got back. Walker Jenkins is still Walker Jenkins. I'm not going to downplay the value that he has, but for a team that's I guess trying to go for it in his conference, and he has a really good conference to try to do it in. Getting as of week 10. As of week 10, the best catcher in the MLB, at least fantasy wise, right, in terms of our scoring. 3 years of Brady Singer and 3 years of Michael Bush. Give me Duke every day.
I think. Sorry, Ash. I just want to add one last small thing. I think the last thing for it is that this trade might be looked at as Duke going for it, but they're really not. Cal Raleigh's their only senior, so that's a position where you can easily redshirt. Our only valuable senior, I should say, is like a senior Savali. But Bueller and Singer, again, they're not sexy, but they're good, and it's 3 years of Singer. And then Michael Bush is the same number of years as Caminero. It's not like he's selling his future at all. In fact, I'd say he might have set himself up better for the next 3 years with these packages that he got versus what he had. He got better for this year, but he also probably got better for the next year and the year after that. And I mean, that to me that's like a perfect trade, is it not?
Yeah, over the next 3 years, the players that Duke got are going to outscore the other players. I mean, in a contract league like this, I think you have to think of it in those terms a lot, because you have prospects for such a short time when they get to the major league roster. Duke did, if you guys remember, when he started his like complete overhaul of his roster initially, he had not realized that you could only have your prospects reset if they're in your prospects part of your roster. And so initially he had far more than 30 prospects. And so then he started trading those chips for major league players and went on a run. Like, I mean, he's 7-11 right now, but 7th and 8th place are tied at 10-8 in the ACC. So
and he's
only
won 6 in a row.
Yeah, he's only 3 games back. He's playing Boston College this week, which is the 11th place team in the ACC. So if
another
he
2-0, very likely.
Yeah, if he has another 2-0 week, I mean, that's going to really set him. And I believe Pitt has a tough game in the league. Let me pull them up real quick. But anyways, Cal Raleigh is obviously his redshirt candidate because he'll be the only one worth talking about. And then Walker Bueller. I mean, I think sometimes we forget this is his first full season back from all the injuries he sustained. So who's to say that come next year, Walker Bueller's not back to the old Walker Bueller that we all knew, whereas, in 2020, and granted 2021's 4 years ago, but 2021 in our format, he was a 41-point player per game. And I'm not expecting him to get back to be a 40-point player, but could he get to a 28, 29, 30-point player? It's very possible.
Even 25 or 26 would be like a huge win with the amount of the stuff he got here. You just like Bueller feels like gravy in this deal. You could do the same deal without Walker Bueller, and it's still probably a win for Duke in my mind. I don't know. Anything you get out of him is just icing on the cake.
And I mentioned Pitt is one of those teams that is 3 games up on Duke. Pitt is playing Miami this week. Granted, the start is pretty favorable to Pitt at they've got 191 points to Miami's 40, but we're talking, we're not even all the way through Tuesday yet. So, if Miami wins that game and then Pitt, drops, Duke's right there. They've got a chance to make the conference tournament. So I think it's an interesting deal, and it accomplishes a lot of things, both this year and in the future. So I think this is a very interesting trade, and I'm glad we were able to break that one down. The next one that I've got on the docket will include you, Chris. So as always, we'll just ask for your input at the end here to determine, how this trade came about and how, what was your thought process going into it and coming out of it. But we have the Loyola Marymount Lions receiving a sophomore Raphael Devers and a junior Logan Webb, for FIU receiving a sophomore Garrett Crochet and a junior Manny Machado. JC, what were your thoughts on this deal?
If you don't mind, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this deal first, to be totally honest. I feel like we don't always get to get Ash's thoughts as much as I think some of us would like. I want to hear Ash's thoughts on this deal, to be totally honest. And hear his analysis before anything else.
What I like about this deal a lot is that Loyola Marymount was one of those replacement owners that came into the league and just started trying to immediately rebuild, or not rebuild, but improve his roster is what I mean by that.
Yeah.
He wasn't just like, well, I'm going to tear it apart and think about next year and the year after. It was like, hey, I want to get to the national tournament this year. So he started acquiring pieces. I do like what he did here because I never trust an arm like Garrett Crochet. I mean, he could implode. I mean, that arm could blow up tomorrow. Raphael Devers, yes, he got off to a slow start this year. But I think Raphael Devers is a bat that you take days out of the week. I think this is a guy that I would want on my team at any point. Logan Webb has been the definition of consistency. If you look back at his performance over the last few years in our league format, he is consistent as heck. Consistently over 900 points every year. One or 2 years over 1,000. So I really like what Loyola Marymount did here, and I think JT did a good job. Obviously, you can never go too wrong receiving Garrett Crochet. So, not saying that Chris did anything wrong here, but that's kind of my take. I really like what Loyola Marymount did here.
I'm in agreement, and I hate to say it, Chris. I think I would rather be on the Loyola Marymount side of this deal. Just my personal opinion, not by like a massive amount, because again, Machado's been really good. He's been almost 6 points a game this year. Like, it's not like, I feel like Machado is the name here. You go Crochet, Devers, Webb, studs, and then you go Machado. Because the last couple of years he hasn't been a super stud the way he was earlier this year. But the guy's almost 6 points a game. And he's playing a pretty valuable position at third base that has had some injuries, and some guys maybe not quite play as well as you would have liked, for example, a Junior Caminero, guys like that. So to me, this is a pretty good – I mean, Manny Machado's not a bad piece, but I just think Devers is, even with his rough start, I believe – I'm not certain. Is he the best third baseman in fantasy right now? He is. He's averaging – I mean, good Lord, he's averaging 7.5 points a game. That's mildly terrifying, actually. Let me look at his splits for this year. He is in the month of June at 10.5 points. In the month of May, he was 9.5 points. I mean, he's been absolutely spectacular since his first 2 weeks of the season. And then obviously Logan Webb. I mean, Crochet's been the second or third best pitcher in fantasy behind Scooble this year. He's been absolutely spectacular, but there is the concern with Crochet. Last year, he was really not the same pitcher after the All-Star break, was pitching for the White Sox, and the weird stuff they were doing with his arm and limiting his innings a little bit, kind of messing him up, maybe, but he wasn't the same. And it's not, I mean, he's 45 points a game. The guy's an absolute super duper star. But Logan Webb is like 37. And at the end of the day, the years are pretty much the same. It's 2 years of pitching for 3 years of pitching, and then 3 years of hitting for 2 years of hitting. But I'd say it's pretty close to a wash, because you're trading a stud sophomore, stud junior for stud sophomore, stud junior, kind of. Just my personal opinion, I'd prefer the LMU side a little bit. I think you're getting more points this year, more points next year, overall, probably. And I just don't totally trust Crochet as much as I do Webb, career-wise, in terms of injuries and sustainability, I guess.
No, and I entirely agree. I think I'm on the Loyola side as well, and I'll explain why here in a second, right? This deal came the same day that Schoolball was traded like 2 or 3 times. Me and JT were talking about the Schoolball deals, and he mentions, hey, I might as well put Crochet up and see what I can get. Maybe I can get a similar haul, because I think I had posted what my offer was for the Schoolball that sold. And I think I said it was Webb and Devers, which I said jokingly. I don't know if I would have made that deal for just Schoolball, as great as he is, right? The best in baseball. I think I'll take the points combined between Devers and Webb, but my thought process when he offered up Crochet was that I needed to replace Devers' losing his third base eligibility next season, since he's not going to play third base at all. So I figured, as much as I'm obviously a dirty homer. I'm a big Red Sox fan. If in the Discord you haven't noticed, so to me it was a Red Sox for a Red Sox, even though Evers is our baby, right? For as much of a crybaby as he is when it comes to anything else, he's our baby, right?
He's y'all's crybaby, exactly.
He's our crybaby, and I love Devers, right? He's my favorite player in baseball, period. I just love watching him play, watching him at the plate. But I bought into the pitching hype in the sense that the upside that you could see from Crochet. I figured pairing him up with Gore for 3 seasons was a bit more conducive. Again, I still think that JT gets more points this year, but I don't have a third baseman for next year. I now do with Manny. So at least in that regard, I was okay, just based on the fact that I was going to get a top 3, top 4 guy so far on the mound in Garrett Crochet. But again, I thought it was just a nice little fun trade between two guys that I thought, did a pretty good job. Originally, he had asked for Rafael Devers, Logan Webb just for Crochet. I got Junior Machado out of it, so I was happy to be able to replace the third baseman. If not, I obviously wouldn't have moved Devers. But, time will tell. Devers is on pace to walk, I think, over 100 times for the first time in his career this year. His plate discipline has been absolutely insane, even though, all the outside noise that we figured was affecting him come playing time. But that was just kind of the thought process. And then lastly, I wanted an extra start to beat VCU. Logan Webb had already played. He didn't have a start. Garrett Crochet did have a start on Sunday, and I figured it'd come down all the way to Sunday. So I thought, if I can better my pitching staff, because my pitching staff realistically is full of a lot of okay pitchers. So you'll see 16, 17 starts from my team, but realistically, I only really trust 5 or 6 of them. So I figured, shoring up the rotation a little bit more with longevity in Garrett Crochet, even if he blows his arm out this year, so be it, right? I lost a workhorse in Logan Webb, but I'll take my chances.
That's a fair point. I did drop the link to the StreamYard in if somebody wants to hop on and give a take on one of these trades that we've gone over or anything else from tonight. Please do so. I'd be love to get your take on any of this. I did want to point out Bryce mentions I think you'd have a much easier time flipping Crochet for 2 very good arms than flipping Devers for 2 very good arms. Give me the Crochet side for that reason, for a team going for it for that reason. So there is a lot of times when we've argued over trades in the Discord, there's been people on both sides, and this is a perfect example of, people aren't always going to agree on which side wins a trade. So I just wanted to point that out because myself and JC seem to lean toward the Devers and Webb side, whereas Bryce leans more toward the Crochet side. So always interesting to get the other side on that kind of thing. But speaking of Garrett Crochet, we got another trade here involving Garrett Crochet, and that is Rhode Island receiving a sophomore Garrett Crochet, and Indiana State on here making their second appearance of the night, receiving a sophomore Zach Wheeler and a freshman Brandon Clark. Chris, lead us off. What do you think about this trade?
So that trade happened like an hour before rosters locked, and Rhode Island was looking for an extra start, right? He tried to get Kevin Gosman out of me a couple hours before, but I needed to start as well, so I didn't oblige, and obviously I do think pedigree wise Zach Wheeler has a better pedigree than Garrett Crochet, but Garrett Crochet, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's second or third in strikeouts this year. He's the one shining bright spot on this team. So, again, he has the Cy Young upside. We just don't know if he's going to last, the full length of the season to even compete for it. So though I do think Rhode Island, I think Rhode Island did a good job, especially for what they were trying to do, right? They wanted to beat the league average, and I think they just beat it by 10 points. So the Crochet start obviously got him over. I kind of like the Indiana State side more. I like Zach Wheeler as much as anybody else, and you get a freshman Brandon Clark. So to me, I slightly lean with Indiana State here.
I think, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not sure. I think this is one of those deals that is all honestly going to depend on how Crochet's arm holds up as the rest of the season progresses. Yeah. I really think that's the main thing that's going to kind of make or break this deal. Because I think this is absolutely a situation where you could very easily be looking at Crochet keeping this pace up for the rest of the year. Not that Zach Wheeler's that far behind by any means. I think Wheeler's, before his last start anyway, was right there, pretty close to neck and neck with Crochet. I typed his name in wrong. I typed in Zach with a H, not a K. But
I had to check my spelling several times. So
yeah, I just typed it in wrong because I was looking at his numbers. He's actually somehow still at only about a point per game less than Crochet, despite his last mediocre start. I mean, Wheeler's been just as good as anybody. He's right there at the very top of the league. I think if Crochet keeps up what he's been doing all year, he'll end the season better than Wheeler will. The question is, will he? at the end of the day, if they're basically the same guy, Wheeler's probably a little more consistently like a guarantee this year. Crochet next year, the year after, with Wheeler being 35, could easily be a guy who maybe as he gets older, exactly as the comment that Ash just pulled up said. I think that's Bryant. I think
it is. Yeah.
Bryant. Okay. Yeah. I think that's Bryant. But he makes a good point. We don't really know how Wheeler's going to age. He's 35, which isn't super old, but it's also not a spring chicken. So he could easily be a guy who is maybe not quite as long-term elite, and Crochet could be really better. So I don't know. For right now, I think I take the Indiana State side because you are getting a highly discussed pitching prospect. In the future, I don't know. I think you could very easily go either way. This isn't a trade that I think you can give an absolute like definitive winner to by any means.
Yeah, this was one that I thought was really interesting, so I wanted to get some other takes on it. Both of these guys are aces. Chuck mentions that Wheeler's 5th in Ks, only 7 Ks behind Crochet. So the pitchers are kind of a wash, really.
Right.
Even though Wheeler's a little bit older. But man, any trade to me right now, and I am regretting the day I traded Brandon Clark almost a month ago. But this is the perfect example. A lot of times in trade negotiations, those of us prospect hounds get really frustrated with a guy like Brandon Clark, because this is a guy that a month ago was totally unranked, but was bursting on the scene, and we all could see it. But then we're talking to other owners who are going, this guy's not even ranked. Why would I care about that guy? I'd rather have a guy in the, ranked 175. But sometimes when you're talking about, Brandon Clark this time next year will be a top 25 prospect. I mean, he's been promoted and is already dominating again. Sometimes when you're evaluating prospects, the number 170 prospect is not better than the 180 prospect. You have to look at things a little bit more in depth than that. You have to, in a deep league, you have to project who are going to be the top 10 prospects of the future. And you have to get them before they get into like the top 100. Sometimes you're picking up a guy who's not in the top 500 of any ranking because of the fact that you're projecting this guy to be a high riser, because guys like that, when they get the helium, they're going right to the top 50, top 25. And that's what Brandon Clark is on the trajectory to do. If I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, I am extremely excited about Brandon Clark. This is a guy that could be he could be in Boston by the All-Star break next summer. I mean, he is dominant out there, throwing triple digits on the radar gun. Nobody can hit this guy. And a month ago, when I tried to include him for senior arms, people were looking at me like I had 2 heads. So, like,
I think he's worth easily more than a senior arm personally, but
I should not have traded him, and that's one of my biggest regrets of the season. I was trying to get some pitching. I don't remember. I would have to go back and look. But
I traded him too. He was part of my package that got me freshman Wu and sophomore Augustin. So I was okay with that, but still his value just keeps doing this. So
yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a top 10 prospect. And
eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying this summer, but I think that, sorry, I'm on my soapbox a little bit, but like those of us sometimes are projecting where these guys are going to be, because whenever a guy is rising, it's much better than a guy that's falling in the rankings. I don't want a guy that's ranked 181 when 3 months ago he was number 54. I want the guy that's ranked 202 over that guy that's flying into the rankings. Like, there's a difference. Just because a guy's higher ranked doesn't mean you should want him more than a guy lower ranked. I
think a very easy way to just to say I think I totally agree with you in that it's very simple. I think it's basically just preseason rankings are just that. They're preseason rankings, and people's performance this year, I think, is probably maybe not the most important thing, but it's very much among the most important things with these prospects. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I feel like Ash might even be giving Brandon Clark a little bit too much helium right now because nobody's going to want him. What Chuck says in the chat, nobody's going to want to move Brandon Clark when he's being talked about like this. But at the end of the day, the guy's been producing at an extremely high level in an organization that probably could use some high-level pitching. He's been playing at an extremely elite level. I mean, he's a guy who's going to, if he keeps playing like this, those numbers are indicative of, especially with his velocity. Those numbers
right now.
Exactly. And those velocity numbers are very indicative of a super high riser, top 15, top 20 prospect. So I don't know. It's like, are you giving him too much helium? Maybe. Are you not? I don't know. I think personally are regretting selling him, though. I could tell.
The upside prospect went from unranked 2 months ago to now he's right around 50 or 60 in the upside prospects rankings. Unranked to like 50. I don't remember the exact number, but it's right around 50 or 60. So, I mean, that's a huge jump in a rankings list.
100%.
Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
No. 2 months into the season is what I'm saying. Like the meteoric rise is something obviously to look at, which is, again, to tie it back to what we were talking about. That's kind of why, just because of the safety of Wheeler in a way over Crochet, I kind of lean a little bit more on that side, just because you do get Brandon Clark on top. But can't go wrong, right? Garrett Crochet, Cy Young potential. So we'll see.
I'm going to transaction history for Brandon Clark now.
Yeah, now I want to know what you sold.
Let's see here.
Watch it be for like 15 fab.
I picked him up off the waiver wire on April 17th.
I got him for 27. You got him for 17.
Yeah, I traded him to Notre Dame for Zach Littell and Jake Irvin.
Meh. I don't know. It's not.
I included John Gray and Cutter Crawford on my side too. So,
well, wasn't Jake Irvin playing a bit better at that point than he has been the last couple starts as well?
Yeah, Jake Irvin was playing really well. He actually hasn't been horrible. Littell is like he'll go one start negative, really negative, and then the next week he'll score like 30 points in a start. So it's like roulette on which one you're going to get. Let me see. Jake Irvin, he's right around 22 points a game. So
it's not bad.
But I would rather have the future that I think that Clark could have at this point, knowing that my team at that time I was first or second in the ACC, and now I'm sitting fourth or fifth. So, but the last two trades that we have on the docket here that I want to bring up, and I hope I get the sequence correct, but I thought they were really interesting for the reason that here in the first trade you had North Central receiving. No, I did this in the wrong order.
I think this is right, is it not?
No, it's
North. That was you were right. Yeah. That first one was the first one.
It's North.
Yeah. No, yes. I couldn't have been because Northern Colorado receiving Tarek Skubal here.
Well, he traded away Skubal and then he received him.
Yeah, because
that's right. Yeah.
I texted Teddy to tell him that he did a really good deal, and then he was like, "Actually, you know what? Never
mind." North Central receives Tarek Skubal for Griffin Canning, or with Griffin Canning. Northern Colorado receives a junior Cole Reagans, a senior Max Fried, and a senior Carlos Rodon. So Northern Colorado trades away Skubal here in this deal. And without having the foresight of knowing what was to come, what was your guys' initial reactions to this? Chris, get us started here.
So obviously Northern Colorado is one of those top 10 teams that's going for it this year. Max Fried and Carlos Rodon have been out of this world. But both seniors, right? So I thought originally, and this is kind of it's counterintuitive to what I said in the start, where anybody could beat DBU, and in a way I thought North Central knows they can't beat DBU in that conference, right? They know they're not going to, so you might as well get long-term potential with Skubal and Canning, and so I thought it was a really good deal for Teddy. In terms of what he's trying to do, right? He's noticed that the team isn't going to be able to keep up with the juggernauts in the Big 12, and he made the right deal. At the time, I thought Northern Colorado did a good job to put himself in a really great spot for this year, but also I don't know if I'd move Skubal at all, to be honest. But without knowing the next trade, I think based on what North Central's trying to accomplish, I like what he got in return. But I think, if you're Northern Colorado, you're really happy with it, right? Even if you didn't move Scooball, you got 2 years of Reagans and then Freed and Rodon. And again, I don't really care about the red shirts. Doesn't really matter to me. One of them could be one, maybe they aren't. But, for what they're both trying to do, I think this is a 50-50. Obviously, without, spoiling everything, obviously at the end, Northern Colorado is going to win this. But 50-50 to me.
I kind of agree. I think, honestly, here's the thing. I don't think North Central lost this, or was it North Carolina Central?
It's
just North Central
Cardinals, yeah.
Okay, North Central Cardinals. My bad. Either way, I don't believe that North Central lost this trade, because I look at it this way. You basically traded 4 years of elite pitching for 3 years of elite pitching, kind of, in that Reagans, Freed, and Rodon grouping. But again, you're probably not in position to really win this year, especially in a pretty loaded conference. And I think you're not setting yourself into like, oh, I'm going to be terrible this year. You still leave yourself an opportunity to be competitive and put yourself in a position to try to make your money back one way or another. And you get the best pitcher in baseball. Now, there is the one concern of what if Scooble's arm goes out? Oh, no. If that happens, that's going to be really unfortunate, because Scooble's one of those guys that it's almost hard to trade for, because you have to trade so much for him that if he gets hurt, it's like, oh, my gosh, I just handicapped my team. And so there is a little bit of a concern there when it comes to trading for Scooble. But as long as he's on the field, he is absolutely dominant. He's prime DeGrom. He's prime Clayton Kershaw. I mean, he's one of the best pitchers we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Griffin Canning's been good all year until the last 2 starts. That's not a guy who for his career has been a consistently good starting pitcher, although a couple of years ago he was 23 points a game over the course of a season. If he can be 20 plus points per game, he's a useful arm on a freshman contract. The question is, can he consistently be that? Will he stick in the Mets rotation long term with some of the guys they have coming back healthy? Paul Blackburn was really good. Frankie Montas is going to be back soon. Guys like that. And so I think there is the potential for that to be a useful second arm. And there's also the potential that in 2 months, it's like, oh, Griffin Canning is getting sent back to the minors because he's been struggling again and they don't need him in the rotation. I like the deal for Northern Colorado, knowing what's to come. As of right now, as a contending team, not knowing what's to come, it's like, I get the logic behind the deal because you're a contending team. And I kind of think personally, this might be a little bit of a win-win, because Freed and Rodon are 2 of the best pitchers in baseball this year. Reagan is one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. And he's been good. And when he's been healthy this year, he's about to be, I think he comes back this weekend as well. So he should be, again, one of the better pitchers in baseball, I would think, through the rest of the year if he stays healthy. You're getting 3 quality pitchers for 1.5 when it comes to this year for sure. And then you still have a really good one next year. And I absolutely could see a world in which Freed or Rodon are redshirted. Both those guys make sense to me as redshirt candidates.
Absolutely. This would have been hard for me not to trade away Tariq Skubal if I didn't know what the next trade was going to be. I'm hoping that he kind of had an idea, but I think Teddy knocked it out of the park receiving a guy like Skubal for 2 senior pitchers, and then a Cole Reagan. So I think your analysis of saying, 3 for 3 kind of evened it out. I think that's a good way of looking at it. And Teddy has set himself up really well for next year and beyond by receiving an ace, like, a Cy Young candidate like Tariq Skubal. On the other side, kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but holy shit, Northern Colorado has, we talk about Dallas Baptist aces. I'm scrolling through here and I'm like, ace on Northern Colorado. With the 3 that we see on here, and then you've got Pablo Lopez, Freddie Peralta, out of the pen. He's got Josh Hader, Mason Miller, and then he's got Robert Suarez. Andrew Abbott has been aces lately for the Reds. Not sure if we may see some regression there, but my God, this is a rotation or a pitching staff for Northern Colorado that is pretty elite.
It's not bad hitting either, to be honest. You still have Trey Turner, Cal Raleigh, Matt McClain has the potential to turn it back on. Jazz Chisholm's been good. Brent Rooker's always consistent good these last couple of years. Dansby's a valuable player. Spencer Steer could easily trend in the right direction. There's a lot of good here for his team. Josh Naylor as well. I didn't even mention. This is a great squad that is well positioned to be extremely competitive this year, one of the best teams in the nation, especially with these couple of deals put together, but also in position to be able to be competitive over the next few years as well. Because sure, they have a lot of seniors, but they have enough pieces of quality where I think they'll be able to put themselves in position to still be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, speaking of that rotation, it only got better after this trade by adding Tariq Skubal right back to the team, in which Northern Colorado got Skubal, Blake Walters, Dylan Lesko, and Yordani Monegro. In return, Rice is going to receive a sophomore James Wood, a freshman Yuri Perez, a freshman Christian Scott, a freshman Trevor Harrison, Dason Hill, and Caleb Bonnemer. I like both sides of this, to be honest with you. But go ahead and start us off, JC. What's your thought on this one?
Okay, initial thoughts. I just have to say I was in talks with Rice for his Tariq Skubal, and I offered him James Wood as a sophomore, Yuri Perez as a freshman, as well as freshman Jesus Mate for Skubal and junior Walker Buehler. So I think my offer was pretty comparable, I have to say, but I'm also extremely high on Mate. I think he's a top 5 prospect in baseball probably, or his top 10 for sure. And I don't know. At the end of the day, I like the return for Rice. I think James Wood, Yuri Perez are two. I mean, I own both of them. I think Wood is already a young superstar, and people are about to remember, I think, with Yuri Perez. He was pretty much dominant in his rehab assignment. He's made 7 starts. In fact, I believe as we're recording the podcast, he made his 8th rehab start tonight. I'm not sure if it's over yet or not, but I haven't seen how he did. And as a Yuri Perez owner, I want to know. Honestly, 1 earned run, 3 hits, 4 strikeouts in 4 innings, 82 pitches. Not perfect, but not bad. That might have been his worst rehab start. So that should tell you how good he's been. I think that's a guy who, look, he might not be Paul Skeens, but he was talked about like he was Paul Skeens a couple of years ago. So you're getting a couple really good guys. Christian Scott's a prospect I'm pretty high on. Trevor Harrison, Dason Hill, Caleb Bonnemer, not as familiar with in terms of like high level prospects. I think Trevor Harrison has had kind of a rough year, if I'm not mistaken. But you're giving up Skubal, so you got to get a lot back. I think he got a lot back. I don't dislike this trade for either team because, again, Northern Colorado is really only losing one consistent guy in their team with Yuri returning and James Wood. You're losing one roster spot, but you're sacrificing that one high-level player for one of the best players in fantasy baseball, and Tariq Skubal. So I like this trade for both sides as well, to be honest. I don't think I'd really say there's a loser, is my thought. I don't know.
Chris, what you got?
Similar to what I mentioned with the North Central trade, I think both teams achieved what they wanted, right? Rice wanted a haul for Skubal, and he got it, right? James Wood, Yuri Perez, 2 really, 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 really talented guys that you're getting back. And again, Rice is in a spot where they're not competing or anywhere near competing this year. So there's no point in keeping Skubal if you can get a haul for him back. Right. I'm sure he got a bunch of offers. Right. That was a really busy Thursday of a lot of big pieces being moved. Skubal got moved twice. We saw Crochet get moved, Devers, James Wood. But again, kind of what JC said, you don't really have a loser. Northern Colorado is set up for this year and for the future in an incredible way. They're going to have a really, really elite pitching staff. And so far through 9.5 weeks, we've seen that pitching is king, right? Pitching is king in this league. And it goes both ways, right? A pitcher can end your week. Like we saw last week, we saw JP Sears put up minus 62 in the first day of the week and really set some teams back. And then you get guys like Skubal who got 103 points in one of his last starts, if not his last start. So it really fluctuates super quickly. And when you have an arm like Skubal to back on, to fall back on, I think Northern Colorado did, knocked it out of the park as well. I'm sure he had the Skubal deals lined up, probably already, verbally agreed to, because I'm pretty sure they went through within minutes of each other. He put in the Discord, I'm not done yet. And within 5 minutes, reacquired Skubal. So, kudos to him. Those deals take a lot of work. But yeah, at the end of the day, there's no loser to me. I think Rice gets a lot of value for Scooball, and again achieves his goal, as does Northern Colorado. So no clear winner here.
If you want a very hot take, I think you could make the argument Northern Colorado lost this deal. James Wood's the number 20 player in fantasy right now. And if Yuri Perez is over 30 points a game when he gets back, which feels very realistic, there could be an argument made that Northern Colorado actually lost points in this deal.
I guarantee you we're going to get a book on the trade block that JC's selling James Wood and Yuri Perez after today. Just a coincidence.
I'm not allowed to gas my guys. No, I will. I don't think either of y'all totally disagree with what I said. If Yuri's really, really good, though, to be fair.
No, if
Yuri was the number 20 player in fantasy.
If Yuri comes back the way we hope he does, sure, you can make the case. Absolutely.
And Chuck mentioned that Yuri is lined up to start next Monday. So here you go. I think, and I said it on this channel a couple of months ago. I don't remember if it was on This Week in CBL or if it was on our General Baseball show. People were forgetting that 18 months ago, Yuri Perez was thought of as a Cy Young type pitcher. Like, I mean, you kind of casually mentioned him in Skeens, but that's not an exaggeration. 18 months ago, people thought Yuri Perez was Paul Skeens. Let's not undersell this. And he came up and was dominant.
And he's still
before he got hurt.
And he was on a huge innings restriction too.
Yeah,
the Marlins were limiting him like crazy. And I remember seeing on social media, Marlins fans were so mad that they just wouldn't let Yuri pitch because he would have these dominating performances and they'd take him out at 75 pitches.
Yeah, I mean,
and then he tore his UCL anyway. So there you go.
He could very well have traded Tariq Skubal for the MVP and the Cy Young in one of these next couple of years.
Absolutely,
it's totally possible. I mean, James Wood is 22 years old. He's got he might have the most oppo power in the league. The guy's a psycho. And he's 6'7". He's 22. He steals bases. He's pretty insane.
And oh, by the way, Christian Scott was like major helium a year ago.
He was good last year in the majors too.
Yes.
And then another guy with the elbow injury. So
yeah, we're talking about a guy that could be a 2 or 3.
Right.
It's not like he was just some throw-in. I mean,
that's what trading.
If you're going to trade Tariq Skubal, this is what you got to get.
Yep.
So I got to say, well done here to Christian, the Rice owner. This was a phenomenal trade for him. Like I am not trying to be hyperbolic whenever I say that he very well could have traded for next year's MVP and Cy Young. And then we have somebody joining us here. It looks like Staples sent away our own baby squid. What's going on, baby squid?
Nothing. Just got home, just walking my dog. I've made a couple posts about it in the trade block, but I wanted to make a public cry. Please trade me Brett Beatty. Please let me bring my boy home.
Rutgers
you just got to message each Brett. You just got to message.
I think JT has a Brett Beatty
owner specifically.
Nah, JT traded him away. I already hit him up. Yeah, I could message each Brett Beatty owner, but I refuse to use my laptop to use Fantrax. I only use my phone, so it's kind of a pain in the ass. So, public cry, please trade me my boy Brett Beatty. Bring him home. Let me bring him home.
I love it.
So yeah, that was really all I had.
There's 8 of them. There's 8 owners out there. Go find them.
Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd live in a world where there'd be 8 Brett Beatty owners?
Best player in the league soon. He's stealing MVP from James Wood next year.
Listen, I mean, in the month of May, he was the Mets' second best hitter. So, I mean, that's just based off statistics. That's not even my overvaluation of him. So,
he's better than Soto.
I don't know what to tell you.
He's better than Soto.
Hey, does he deserve to be on the roster?
Does who?
I'm not going there. He's referencing my Trent Grisham rant.
Well, I mean, listen, Trent Grisham's having a good year, but he's no Brett Beatty. Let's be honest.
Oh, obviously.
Trent Grisham should not have even been kept by the Yankees in the offseason. That was my rant.
Hey, actually, I do have a question for you. If the If the Braves got Brett Beatty instead of the guy that got suspended for 50 games for PEDs, would you be happier? Or?
I don't want Brett Beatty.
I'm sure you'd like him more than Profar.
Probably.
Because even if you make the playoffs, Profar can't even play.
Oof, it's true.
What a terrible signing, man. Like, we had a great show. I was all enjoying the night, first time back on the pod and a
We
while
ruined his
now.
mood.
And now I got to think about freaking Jurickson Profar, the worst signing in the history of the Atlanta Braves. Look, I got to pull this up. Look at this shit.
We're getting an ass rant.
Was it worse than making Verdugo the leadoff hitter on his first day?
That was bad too. But Jurickson Profar, a career 99 WRC plus. And
what was his WRC plus last year?
Last year it was 139.
Sounds about right.
On the roids.
True.
This year his WRC plus in his 4-game sample was 27. So
he's gonna come back and look like the player he was his entire career before last year again. And it's gonna be like,
exactly.
Wow, we just traded we just signed a guy for a bunch of money who's going to be 85 WRC plus.
And he's already 32.
And he can't play in the playoffs.
What a terrible decision. Like, how do professionals, how do they do this? Like,
fire.
I mean, put me in the role.
Hire Ash. Yes, please hire Ash.
This is terrible. Like, I already went on a pretty long rant about Jurickson Profar a while back.
You see what you do, Peter?
No, I think you should keep doing it. It's healing to my soul.
It's entertaining. That's what it is for sure.
And Alex Verdugo, like it's funny because I created that rant video about Alex Verdugo, and then he went off that weekend.
He's been pretty well. Okay, he started pretty good. Has he been good recently? I haven't kept track of Alex Verdugo.
No, he's hitting like 7th in the lineup or something like that.
Yeah, but that first weekend after I went on my rant, like, and people kept being snarky in the comments of the videos,
right?
Like, what are you thinking now? Well, let's check this back in a month.
Yep.
But anyway, it's been fun, guys. I'll let you guys kind of give your final takes of the night. Peter, are you going to stick around for the finale here, or are you bailing on us? What are you doing?
I mean, it's up to you. I can leave now. I can stick around. Totally your call.
I think we're wrapping up. What's your kind of final thoughts on the way that last week went and the way this week has started off, or anything that we've talked about? Peter, give us your final take of the night.
My final take of the night is that Rutgers is going to go on an absolute resurgent run behind the back of Brett Beatty and the rest of the Mets. And, the Big Ten, look out.
Chris, what do you got? What's your final take tonight?
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned it before, all those teams that are still, in that bubble of whether they're going to compete in their conference or not, the trade deadline is quickly approaching. So make those decisions as quickly as possible. And I'm thankful that the CBL show goes on for 2 hours, so I don't have to watch the Boston Red Sox lose another one run game as they are as we speak. So, that's a fun one. Thanks for the distraction.
I'm going to echo what he said in that my Rangers also suck, and my Rangers are also getting whooped by the Tampa Bay Rays tonight, which is unfortunate. But shout out to Drew Rasmussen for 61 points today, and that doesn't even include the win and the quality start. So nearly 70 points from Drew Rasmussen. We love you. And Carlos Rodon, too. I love both of y'all. I just traded Drew Rasmussen, so he'll be missed. I made sure not to accept the trade until his game had started so that I would get his last start. And I did that intentionally. I accepted the trade after a player in that trade's game had already locked, so as to make sure I got Rasmussen's points tonight, and that was worth it. But hey, I hope I beat Tulane this week. This is a competitive matchup, so I'm enjoying. I hope y'all enjoyed the show as always, man. It's fun to be a part of this.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Chris and JC and Peter, for coming on and making this a fun show. Had a good time tonight, and all the people watching with their chat comments and everything. Appreciate you guys. Make sure, like I said before, you hit the like button on this episode down below the video. That helps us out a lot with our performance and everything. So appreciate you guys doing that. I did want to mention that my team right now is up by more than 219 points on the week already. Zach Gallen, I almost did not start him, and I'm not even joking. I almost did not start him tonight, but he pulled through with a 51-point night for me. So
you're third in the nation this week, Ash. It's time to buy in Louisville.
Sandy Alcantara with a 35-point night. So those two, I am telling you, I have been livid because those two, you would think Sandy and Zach Gallen would have been a couple of guys that could have anchored my staff.
I traded Sandy, thankfully.
And I am just livid over the way they've pitched. But good God, if Sandy could bounce back, him and Yuri could be a 1-2. Like, holy shit.
You know who I wish would bounce back? Freddie Peralta. Just going to throw that out there. He's so bad.
He's still averaging like 30 points on the year, though. So,
that's inflated. He's had like 2 70-point games or something like that. He's had like 19, 11. Sure, he had 19 points today after 7 hits, but I don't want to get into it. Whatever.
Could be worse.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining tonight. Appreciate you guys. Everybody in the league, appreciate you all as well. If you have thoughts on the Buttermaker or anything, please drop those in the Discord as well for any changes you'd like to see with that, or any comments on the show tonight. Thank you all again, and have a good night.